There is something happening in your life right now that has no category, no precedent, no previous version that you can point to and say it was like that. And the reason it has no category is because what God is doing in your specific situation, in your specific story, with your specific combination of brokenness and faith and waiting and purpose, has genuinely not been done before in exactly this way. That is not an exaggeration. That is not the kind of encouragement that sounds good but means nothing. Heaven does not repeat itself exactly. Every person who carries a real calling carries a calling that is theirs alone, designed for them, sized to them, assembled from the particular materials of their particular life. And what God is building with the materials of your life right now has no template, because you are the template. And what is coming is something the world has not seen yet. Stay right here, because Archangel Michael has been sent to this moment with the specific word about why you were chosen for something that has never been done before. Do not scroll. Stay until the very end. What is being released over your life in this message is going to change how you see yourself and your season and your future in a way that nothing before this moment fully prepared you for. Most people spend their lives trying to fit into categories that already exist, trying to become the version of success or significance or purpose that they can point to in someone else's life and say, I want that. That is the goal. That is what I am building toward. And there is nothing wrong with being inspired by what others have built. But there is a specific kind of person, a specific kind of chosen one, for whom the categories that already exist are too small, for whom the examples that are available are close but not quite right, for whom the path that others have walked gets them only partway to the destination that their own assignment requires. You are that kind of person. You have felt it without being able to fully name it. The sense that the available templates do not quite fit, that the success models you have been handed apply to something that is adjacent to your assignment, but not exactly it, that the directions others have given you about how to get where you are going are based on how they got where they went, and the overlap between their journey and yours is real but incomplete. You have sometimes interpreted this as a problem with yourself, as evidence that you are doing something wrong or missing something obvious that everyone else can see. But it is not a problem with you. It is evidence of the originality of your assignment. You were not made for a path that already exists. You were made to create one. And the discomfort of not fitting the available templates is not a sign that you are lost. It is a sign that you are the first, the one who goes before. The one whose life, when it is fully expressed, becomes the template that the people who come after you are going to point to and say, I want to go where they went. How did they get there? Stay with me. Do not scroll. The specific word about what it means to be chosen for something unprecedented is still ahead. Do not skip. I want to address what being chosen for something unprecedented has cost you. Because there is a specific kind of difficulty that belongs to the person who is on a path that has not been walked before, not the general difficulty of a hard life. The specific difficulty of moving in a direction without the reassurance of knowing that others have moved in that direction and arrived somewhere worth arriving. When you are on a known path, you can look ahead and see people who have traveled further than you and assess from their experience what the terrain looks like. You can learn from their mistakes. You can be encouraged by their arrival. You can calibrate your expectations against the reality of what the journey actually requires, based on what it required them. There is a specific comfort in that, the comfort of precedent, the comfort of a map drawn by someone who has already been where you are going. You have not had that comfort. The path you are on has had no map, because no one has drawn it yet. The direction you have been moving has had no confirmed arrivals to point to, because you are supposed to be the first arrival. And moving in a direction where you cannot verify from other people's experience that the direction leads somewhere worth going requires a specific quality of trust that is genuinely costly. Because the only confirmation you have had is internal, a knowing in your spirit that this is the way even when nothing external corroborates the knowing. A sense of direction that comes from inside rather than from the evidence around you. That trust has been tested in ways that the person on a known path does not encounter, not just the general tests of faith that every journey includes. The specific test of continuing to move in an original direction when the absence of precedent makes continuing feel like stubbornness rather than faith. When the people around you, who are trying to help you from the framework of paths they know, keep pointing you toward the known ones. When every reasonable voice in your life is suggesting that the direction you are moving in has no confirmed destination, and perhaps you should choose one that does, and you kept moving in your direction anyway, not always with complete certainty, but with enough. With the specific enough that allows someone to take the next step even when they cannot see the step after it. And that specific enough, that stubborn original faith, is exactly what the unprecedented assignment required of its carrier. And you have been the carrier. Do not move. Archangel Michael says do not scroll. The revelation of what being the first means for your specific life is still being released. Stay right here. Let me tell you why God chose you for something that has never been done before. Not in the sense of listing your qualities as though heaven is awarding you a prize for performance, but in the deeper sense of explaining the logic of divine selection. Because understanding why you were chosen is going to change how you relate to your own story and your own gifts and your own journey in a way that releases something that has been stuck. God chooses people for unprecedented things based not primarily on their strengths, but on the specific combination of their strengths and their wounds. This is the part that surprises most people. The wounds are not incidental to the selection, they are central to it. Because the unprecedented thing that God is doing through your life requires someone who has been through what you have been through, who understands from the inside what it feels like to be in the situations that the people you are being sent to are in, who carries not just knowledge of those situations, but genuine experiential understanding of them, the kind that cannot be manufactured by education or observation, only by having been there. Your specific history of pain, loss, disappointment, misunderstanding, and delayed arrival is not a list of the things that happened to you before your real life began. It is the curriculum of the assignment you were chosen for. Every difficult thing you experienced was building something in you that the unprecedented work requires. The compassion that only comes from having suffered. The patience that only comes from having waited longer than patience felt sustainable. The credibility that only comes from having been through the thing and come out of it with your integrity intact. The authority that only comes from having held on when letting go was available and arguably justified. You were not chosen in spite of what you have been through. You were chosen because of it. The wounds qualified you. The waiting qualified you. The specific path of your particular life, with all of its unexpected turns and painful seasons and prolonged delays, assembled the person who is the only person equipped to do the specific unprecedented thing that your assignment requires. No one else has your combination. No one else has your history and your gifts and your wounds and your faith assembled in exactly this configuration. And the unprecedented thing God is doing requires exactly this configuration. That is why it has never been done before, because the person required to do it has never existed before. You are the first version of you, and the work that requires you has been waiting for you. To receive what Archangel Michael is releasing over your life in this moment, go to the comments and type "I was made for this." Let that declaration be the agreement between your spirit and what heaven is confirming today. Do it now, and then stay with me, because the specific dimensions of the unprecedented thing are still being revealed. Let me talk about what unprecedented actually looks like in practical terms. Because the word can feel abstract and disconnected from the reality of Tuesday morning, when the bills are due and the direction is still not fully clear, and the gap between the vision and the circumstances is still wide enough to create doubt. What does it mean practically to be doing something that has never been done before? It means that the metrics you are using to assess your progress are often the wrong metrics, because the metrics available to you are the ones designed to measure progress on known paths. And when you apply known path metrics to an original path, you consistently get readings that suggest you are behind or off course or insufficient, when in reality you are simply not on the path that the metrics were designed to measure. The progress is real, the movement is genuine, but it does not show up in the standard measurements, because the standard measurements were not built for what you are building. This is one of the most practically disorienting things about carrying an original assignment, the absence of the confirmation that the standard metrics provide. The constant sense of measuring yourself against a ruler that was not made for what you are making. And the quiet but persistent conclusion that the absence of the expected measurements means the absence of the expected progress. But the progress is there, in the dimensions that matter for your specific assignment, in the development of the specific capacities your work requires, in the building of the specific relationships and the specific understanding and the specific depth of character that the unprecedented thing needs its carrier to have before it can be expressed. The progress is real. It is just not visible through the lenses that were designed for something else. The second practical dimension of unprecedented is that the opposition you face is specifically targeted to what you carry. Because original assignments attract specific opposition, the enemy of purpose does not waste sophisticated resources on ordinary paths, but an original assignment, one that could change the landscape of what is possible for the people it reaches, attracts a level of opposition that is proportional to its potential impact. If you have felt that the resistance in your life has been more organized and more persistent and more specifically aimed than what the circumstances seem to warrant, this is why. What you are carrying is significant enough to be specifically opposed, and the specificity of the opposition is itself evidence of the significance of the assignment. The third practical dimension of unprecedented is the loneliness. The specific loneliness of being the first, of carrying something that the people closest to you do not yet have a framework for, of moving in a direction that has no confirmed arrivals for others to point to when they are trying to encourage you, of holding a vision whose full scope you cannot fully share because the sharing would require the listener to have access to a framework they do not yet have. That loneliness is real. It is one of the specific costs of being chosen for something original. And it is not going to last. Because the unprecedented thing, when it arrives, when what you have been building becomes visible and begins to produce its fruit, is going to attract exactly the people who needed it to exist. The people for whom your work was always the destination. And the community that forms around the unprecedented thing you build is going to be one of the most significant healings of the loneliness season. Because you are going to be surrounded by people who get it, who finally, completely, without requiring extensive explanation, understand what you are building and why and what it means to them. And that understanding is going to feel like the most complete belonging you have ever experienced. Do not scroll, stay right here. The word that is going to change your relationship to your own story is still coming. I want to address the question that lives at the center of carrying an unprecedented assignment, the question that surfaces in the quiet moments and in the hard days, and in the times when the gap between the vision and the visible is at its widest. The question of whether you are the right person, whether the assignment actually belongs to you, whether perhaps there has been some mistake, and the original thing that needs to be done is going to be done by someone who is more equipped and more ready and more certain than you currently feel. The question is understandable. It is human. It is almost universal among the people who carry original assignments. Moses asked it at the burning bush. Gideon asked it when the angel called him a mighty warrior. Jeremiah asked it when the word of the Lord came to him in his youth. The pattern of the people chosen for unprecedented things asking whether they are the right person is as old as divine selection itself. And the answer that heaven gives to that question is always the same. Not because you are sufficient in yourself, but because I am sufficient, and I have chosen you, and my choosing is not accidental, and it is not mistaken, and it is not something you need to verify against your own assessment of your qualifications, because your assessment does not have access to the full information that my choosing was based on. You are the right person, not because you feel like it, not because your qualifications are obvious to you, but because heaven, with full information about your history and your wounds and your faith and your gifts and your specific configuration of all of these things, made a specific and deliberate selection, and that selection is not subject to revision based on your doubt about it. What is being done through your life has never been done before, and you are the person it is being done through. Both of those things are true simultaneously. And the unprecedented nature of the assignment does not make the selection uncertain. It makes it more specific, more targeted, more intentional, because something that has never been done before requires someone who was specifically built for it, and you were specifically built for it. The building took a long time, it cost a great deal, but it is complete, and what was built is ready for the work it was built for. Share this message with someone who has been feeling like they do not fit the available templates, someone who has been trying to measure their progress with the wrong ruler and concluding from the wrong reading that they are failing, someone who is on an original path and needs to hear that the absence of precedent is not evidence of error, it is evidence of originality. When you carry this word for others, Archangel Michael carries your breakthrough forward. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss another word released through this space for your season. What is spoken here is specific to people in specific seasons, and you want to be positioned to receive every word that carries your name. My beloved child, you stayed until the end, and in staying you received something that the difficult season of carrying an original assignment could not give you, because it was too close and too hard and too full of the noise of doubt and opposition to allow this kind of clarity to land. You received the view from above, the perspective of heaven on what your life has actually been, on what the difficult seasons were actually building, on why you were actually chosen, on what is actually coming. God has never done this before. The specific combination of things being assembled in your life, the specific work that your specific history and gifts and wounds and faith are being used to build, is genuinely unprecedented. There is no previous version of it to point to, no established path that leads directly to it, no confirmed arrivals to draw encouragement from in the traditional sense. And you are the person chosen to be the first, to build the path that does not exist yet, to create the template that the people who come after you are going to use, to do the thing that when it is done is going to make people ask how it happened, and the answer is going to be a story that starts with a person who moved in an original direction without a map and held on through a season that had no confirmed destination and built something that no one had built before because they were the only person assembled from exactly the right materials to build it. That person is you. Heaven confirmed it. Archangel Michael was sent to say it directly. And the unprecedented thing is not still in the future, as a distant possibility. It is assembling right now from the materials of your life that have been in preparation for longer than you know. You were chosen for this, not despite who you are, because of exactly who you are, every part of it. The gifts and the wounds and the faith and the waiting and the specific original direction that has never quite fit the available templates. It was always going to be you, and it is finally time. Thumbnail: God chose you for something never done before.